Greetings and welcome. My name is Sevn Sharman. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to the Power Hour on Channel 7. Today we are going to be deep diving into the two forces that rule your life, all our lives. And incidentally, not only do they rule our lives, but they rule all of existence. For our life is inseparable from existence. Our life is existence, as we shall see. So I shall start at the center of all things. The center, the unnameable, unspeakable, undefinable center, which can never be described in words. This great center emanated into two forces. These two forces, seeming opposites but actually bound together for a purpose, ever seeking through the polarity of their seeming opposition, ever yearning to be one, ever yearning. This yearning is the basis of all manifest existence, the return to source, the return to one, the return unity, from which all springs, all returns. These two forces, which are in fact two principles, are the means by which the universe unfolds itself and returns to itself. All of this we shall deep dive into today. And in line with this, these two forces, which are the duality, which are a polarity, this dualism we shall explore at the beginning by using an analogy, the analogy of the mountaintop. The mountaintop and the valley. Well known to us here on Earth, these are the terrains that pretty much describe the spectrum of our experience on this planet, on this beloved planet Earth. The topography of Earth on land where we live is defined by the valleys and the mountaintops and everything in between. Now, in the valleys are where we live, where humanity has made its home. These homes are where we prosper, cultivate ourselves, gather together, form societies, cultivate food, and just be. Yes? So the valley is the symbol for the place where humanity gathers and lives its life. Usually the valleys are so because they are the most lush places on the earth. Green grassed, fertile, good weather, etc., etc. Now the mountaintop is somewhat of a contrast to the valley. And this mountaintop is a place high, hard to scale, often difficult to reach. But the more difficult to reach the mountaintop is, the greater the perspective and the reward in perspective, in view, in outlook that it offers. You see, down here in the valley where we live, everything is quite immediate, and our lives in the valley are very much, our perspective is entwined with this immediacy, with the necessity of life to be dealt with. Yeah, and it's hard for us to gain perspective in the immediacy and constancy of this life here in the valley. And that is why many saints, philosophers, yogis, mystics, seekers have often found refuge and solace in the high altitudes of the planet, and there they have sought after the mysteries of existence. One of the reasons why the mountaintops have been chosen, and not just because there were fewer people there, but because the mountaintop itself, literally and figuratively, represents a very high perspective. This means that from the mountaintop, you look upon the valley below, far, far below, and you suddenly see the valley and all the life that goes on there from such a high perspective that it simply becomes understandable in the context of everything. You have a greater understanding of its relevance from the perspective of high. Whereas when you're in the midst of it, it is very hard to have this perspective. We are often overwhelmed by the immediacy of life. So it is important in life to take time out of the valley and go to the mountaintop, whichever mountaintop that may be for you, literally a mountaintop or just the space outside. Every single human being knows the need to get away from life as they know it for periods of time, for sanctuary, for rejuvenation, for regeneration. So the mountaintop. The mountaintop is a place of great perspective, and at that place we look upon the world and see things in a new light, in a light that helps us better manage, understand the wider aspects of existence, not just the immediate needs and wants, but also things that come close to us, philosophies, dreams, possibilities, the mystical, the otherworldly, the unseen comes close to this world in these heights. And so today, I take you to my mountaintop. There have been myriads of mountaintops scaled by people, by those who've come before me, other seers, mystics, searchers, and each mountaintop has produced its own insight, its own gift, its own benefit. And instead of having to scale this mountaintop yourself, well, we all have mountains to scale, but today you're going to join me as I take you to mine. And as you accompany me, I will be the guide, and so your steps shall be sure. And as they are sure, you shall arrive. And as we arrive, hopefully you shall see what it is that I see from this place, and be astounded and be blessed, and return to the valley of your lives and the aftermath of this with a perspective that you may hold and that may enrich your lives in the busy valley of your life. So I shall begin at the beginning. Look around you. Everything we see, touch, and experience seems infinitely complex. But what if all creation is actually governed by just two fundamental principles? Once you see them, you can never unsee them. And everything is built on top of this. And I mean everything, for they permeate existence. The underlying premise of my work is to name and identify the sentient construct behind all manifest existence. How everything is but two sublime principles taking infinite form, and how these, once glimpsed, demonstrate the majesty of creation in everything around us, and of course, inside us. This insight, once it is grounded in perception, bestows holy vision. I'll say that again. This insight, once grounded in perception, bestows holy vision. And the human mind becomes a vehicle for never-ending awe and wonder. That curiosity that is written about, that we speak of in children, that look on people's faces, on children's faces especially, when they are in awe and wonder. That look which we secretly envy as adults, as we do not carry much of it after growing up. We relinquish it along with our innocence, so to speak. Well, just by the way, a tip for a future episode, this relinquishing of innocence, as inevitable as it seems, as final, is not the final stage. We can find innocence again in knowledge, beyond knowledge, but this will be a future talk. For now, just a little plug, a play for it right here, just to let you know more mystery awaits. So I'd like to begin with these two principles. For everything began with these two principles, and certainly will end with these two principles. As I said, once this is grounded, once this understanding is witnessed, this is not something you need to be convinced of. It's just the way the universe is made. That ancient seers, meditators, philosophers, seekers, throughout history, throughout time, have glimpsed, have understood this to be the basis of all creation. And the powers that they have built, the powers of consciousness they have built as a result of this, speak for themselves, as we shall soon see. My wish is that some of this holy vision can be awakened in you. What I'm about to unfold is a kind of meditative perception. I will just unfold information for you over and over again, the same thing in various forms, until it begins to dawn in consciousness that we are talking about the same thing over and over again. And as this happens, you may want to watch this several times or record it or come back to it. This, once repeated, begins to assimilate into the self, becomes grounded in perception. And once it resides within strongly enough, foundationally enough, we begin to see the entire world through this lens. And the world itself gains what I call a magical, in this case, a positive allure, aura, foundation, baseline. And that is, of course, the purpose of my work, is Inspiration Age. Inspiration Age is to lead our minds into their rightful place. And I do believe we have somewhat lost that place. In the course of my talks, we will explore how that has happened. But in order to get there, we must start at the beginning. And the beginning is the source of all creation. The source of all creation is two. The best allegory for this down here in 3D, because we are talking about multiple dimensions. Another discourse or talk for another time what multiple dimensions are. For now, we just start in the most familiar dimension to us, this home, this third density, 3D. And we start with the image of a coin. One single unit that has two faces. It is one thing, and yet it has two sides. I will call this coin the source of existence, this undifferentiated one, the principle from which all things spring and all things return, and yet two things, only ever two things. The ancients had two words for these two faces, one word for each face of this coin. And these two principles, I would like to call them, are eternal, infinite, never-ending, and manifest throughout all of existence through eternity. As we look around you, you will ultimately learn and remember to see these two highest principles in everything, including yourself. Again, back to the coin. The first side of the coin is called will. The other half of the coin, when flipped, and upon it is written love. These two principles are the foundation of all creation, of all consciousness, of everything in the manifest and unmanifest universe. Will and love. Well, the mind, being curious, might ask the question, why these two? Why this? How come? For example, in the Christian traditions, we have the Father-Son as a parallel, as a component of this will-love, which is part of a Trinity principle, which we'll explore later. But just today, we're going to explore the duality principle. This Father-Son, will and love aspect is the way it is because it is by will alone that all things are made. Everything. Everything is made by will, the will of the source. Infinity, many people have different words for this. I call it source. Some people call it God. It has a myriad names, the divine. However many terms we apply to it, it remains the same. These two principles of will and love are the way they are because they are meant to work together intrinsically. Will is the means by which all things are created. Love does not create anything. And yet love is an intrinsic part of this dual principle. The most intrinsic part, in fact, because love is the guarantee that in the presence of this principle, in the presence of love, will creates perfection. You see, will can create anything. By will, you can do and achieve and decree, and the divine ultimately with all power can, in its will, manifest anything. However, in the presence of love, true love, will creates perfection. Because when you are love and you create, the outcome is perfection, okay? So you might say love is the safeguard of will's action in the world. Love is the essential safeguard. Now, looking at these two principles in further detail, we will observe how they unfold throughout all creation. From will and love extend or emanate the principles to identical principles, which we shall call truth and beauty. Another name for these two emanations, most familiar to us, and as we shall see, an enormous tie-in with our nature and its nature, is Father, Mother. Spirit and matter are the extensions of these two, further emanations of these two, further parallels of these two. Plus and minus, the polarities that run this entire third dimension that we live in. The basis of chemistry, physics, everything runs on plus and minus. Attraction, repulsion, the combination of all elements. As we can see, from will and love manifest the two principles, plus and minus, which form in the interaction all of manifest existence. Electricity and magnetism are two identical components. Again, the same thing. Again, in different terms and different words, but the same thing again. Electricity, that spark, that power, that voltage that builds and arcs into the world, charge and power and potential. And magnetism, that not so much a force like electricity, completely different. Magnetism is a field, in fact, an attractor field. One of the hallmarks of the feminine is that it is an attractor field of the mother, of love, of matter. This attractor field, which characterizes magnetism, we can see by the fact that it attracts iron. You just put iron in the sphere of a magnet, and it's automatically drawn to it. Can't help itself. Yes. One of my favorite analogies to continue the exploration of these two principles are the words content and form. I love these two in particular because they highlight something very available to our minds, which becomes less theoretical and more practical. And it is this. The word content describes that which is purely an idea. It is an idea as yet unmanifest, and yet, not and yet, but the form, the counterpart to content. The feminine component, the mother component to this content is form. And form is the means by which everything takes expression. Doesn't matter which dimension we're talking about, every dimension has a form, however tenuous this may be, every dimension has a form and uses a vehicle of some kind with which to interact within the density of that plane of existence. Just like here in 3D, our forms are able to interact with all the other forms in this dimension. So the form is the basis upon which, in this particular context, the form is empty. The form are the empty pages of a book. And I love the analogy of a book because a book is the perfect combination of content and form come together to manifest something that is tangible, real, that we can access. This podcast is another form. The medium by which you watch this on a screen, this is also a form. Okay, and the content, in this case, that which I transmit to you, the content is that which without this form, it would only stay here, inside me. And thanks to this form, content can reach, manifest itself, and reach you. Whether it be a book, and a book is a great, fabulous analogy because most people still, these days, know books. I grew up with them. Some people today still read them, thank heavens. There's something great comforting about a book. And I'm sure those who read books understand what I'm talking about. So back to the book. The content is an idea, and that idea is made manifest in form in the book. And because this is the case, the idea finds its expression in reality and is accessible, can be found, has power, has the means to reach. The content can reach through the medium of the form. So this is a beautiful analogy because this explains everything about how also the other dual principles work together. You see, love, you might say, is the principal form in which will manifests itself. And with each of these analogies that we should discover, each has a certain quality, slightly different from the other, and yet all refer back to the original same working of these two principles. And through the exploration of all the many, many dualities and polarities we shall explore today, we can begin to see the various subtle facets of how these two principles are operating together. The nature, the immense, subtle, divine natures by which these principles interact, interweave, and mold creation. We come now in this journey of duality to the only two places in the universe. Outside and inside. Inside and outside. Those are the only two places, really, subjectively speaking. Objectively, the universe has many places, but from a subjective point of consciousness, from a point of consciousness, the universe has only two places, inside and outside. The ancients used words for these, and I mean ancient seers, philosophers, explorers who explored the unseen and returned with words in their and offered these words as a means to describe what it is they found. The ancient esotericists, for example, would speak, they have a saying, a simple 4 words in which what they saw as the entire makeup of the universe was described. And this makeup of the universe was summarized by these 4 words. As above, so below. As above, so below. This is a reference for the macrocosm and the microcosm being formed by the exact same forces. I'll give an example of this, as above, so below, in tangible modern physics. Look at a solar system. We have a center point with the sun and planets revolving around that orbit of the sun. This is the macro. And then we go down all the way into nearly the infinitesimal, to the size of an atom, and we take a carbon atom, for example, with 6 electrons orbiting its 6 protons. And we can see that these 6 electrons are almost identical in makeup and various sheaths they form, all orbiting around the center. Okay, so a single atom emulates and is made in exactly the same way as a solar system. Fascinating and beautiful. This above, so below is an attempt to describe this reality and also teach you that in order to understand that which is unseen, that which is unavailable as yet, you may need only look into that which is visible in front of you. And you will understand, by virtue of understanding the workings of what is right in front of you, you will also understand the workings of that which is beyond. The workings of everything in existence, in fact. Now we come to the only two movements in the universe. There are only two movements in the universe, as impossible as it may seem. In this crazy, infinite universe of ours, even in this world, this single planet, two movements? There's a million things moving at speed in every given direction, colliding and bypassing each other. How can there be two movements? Well, I shall tell you what they are. These two movements lie actually at the center of our own makeup, just as they lie at the center of existence. Will and love, plus and minus, truth and beauty, spirit and matter, electricity, magnetism, content and form. These two movements are expansion and contraction. Expansion and contraction are the only two movements in the universe. And now look inside you, your very self, and you will find that your body mirrors this truth every second of your life. The heart, the lungs, these two principles of expansion and contraction are present everywhere. Most certainly in our lives and in all manifest life. Let's come now to the elements. The elements, fire and water, reflect father, mother, will, love, electricity, magnetism. The fire-water principles, seeming opposites, seeming different, but at the same time having, as we know from the interrelation between the other principles, a counterpart destiny. They form some form of working here. Now, fire and water, the ancients used to describe the two basic polarities of the universe. And just to delineate a little bit into that, the mind may go, yeah, but there's four elements, not just two. Well, I shall explain to you that there are actually only two elements, and that is fire and water. The fire expansion phase, the water contraction phase. The fire hot, the water cold. The fire electric, the water magnetic. The fire evaporation, the water condensation. These are the only two principles. There is only fire and water. The earth principle. What is the earth principle if it is not an element, if it's not a core element? Well, the earth principle is the principle of manifestation itself. It is the means by which these two elements, fire and water, come into existence, become manifest. The earth element in the Western religious tradition is called the Holy Spirit. And by the Holy Spirit alone you shall know. The Holy Spirit in Western Christian tradition is the manifestation principle. It is the Trinity component of the duality of will and love. The Trinity of manifestation is governed by the earth element, and it is the earth element throughout creation that manifests these two principles into sentient form, into myriad form. What role then has the air element? Fire, water, air, earth. What role could the air element have when we have two polaric opposites and their manifestation principle? Well, the air element, to understand the relevance and the definition of the air element, we not only look within ourselves. We human beings have a fire principle inside our heads, the directive place where will direct itself into the world. We have a water principle. Here, look at our digestive tract. By means of water, watery fire, it processes all the nutrients we take in. So the water below, the fire above. What is in the middle? What is in the middle of these two, of the fire and water principle? We have the air principle. The air principle serves as the balancing principle between fire and water. Air contains both heat and moisture. Yes? So the air is the balancing principle between these two. It carries something of each, the place by which movements between the two may be regulated and informed and balanced. The earth principle, the means by which these manifest. Beautiful. Moving into concrete physics, let's go to the planets. Let's go to our solar system. We look out in the night sky through our telescopes and we see millions and millions, countless numbers of suns dotting the universe. The suns are the father, the will, the electric aspect of existence. What then is the mother? What then is love? What then is matter? Well, matter is obviously that which is not the suns. Everything but the suns is her. She is the void. And she is the matter which is not yet awoken into the sun. You see, the feminine is both matter, for she is matter, he is spirit. He is the unmanifest, and yet he is the spark of all creation. She is that which models this spark, which receives this spark, this fire, and manifests together through her form and his spark manifest existence. Now, the outer space, this so-called void, which for many decades, for thousands of years probably, was understood as an empty space. The firmament, the place between suns and planets, this vacuum of space at minus whatever, 200 and something degrees Celsius, unimaginably cold. I'd never want to go there. This place, which has been equated in modern quantum physics with the concept 0 point, in the void of outer space is contained an energy which we call 0 point energy, which has been theorized and postulated to actually be an enormous density of energy in potential, energy unmanifest. It is said, for example, that a single liter of space in the void, that liter, 1,000 cubic centimeters, or 100, anyway, the 1,000 milliliters, the 1 liter of space, the energy that 1 liter of space, empty space, contains is 1,000-fold more than the energy that atoms themselves hold. Think about that for a moment. And we won't go any further into that, but suffice to say that the void of space is not just an empty place. It is a place full, pregnant, overflowing with a potential that is yet untapped. We might say that in the form of the suns themselves, this potential of the void has become activated. Yes? Into a broadcasting fusion principle in which matter herself broadcasts ceaseless energy in all directions of a sphere for gigantic periods of time. This is the Father's true awakening in the Mother. The Spirit's true awakening inside matter we see as the great suns of this universe. Our own sun, we call Father Sun, is the source of all life on this planet. Now, in our solar system, the mother principle is considered the planet herself and all of nature upon it. Many people have called it Mother Gaia. She is considered a sentient, and she unfolds all life upon her body, this planet. The Father, the Sun principle of this solar system, conjoined with this planet upon which life takes place. The Father itself is the source of all life on this planet. Without the sun, no life. The planet would just be dead. It would be empty, void of any life. There would be no holy child. There would be no Trinity principle. The earth principle would merely be dust and mineral chemistry. But the life, the blessed unfolding, the blessed dance of life happens on this particular planet because the Gaia, the mother principle, offers her body and her matter, her kingdoms of mineral, vegetable, animal, human, for the ensoulment by the Father. And the kingdoms are the gradual progressive ensoulment of spirit into matter. And we shall explore these kingdoms very soon in another talk, but for now, just how they relate to one another. So that's suns and planets and the great void tied in to the great dualistic principle. Yes? Masculine and feminine obviously are the most relevant components of these two principles, and we can begin to see how in their essence the gender, this polarity, this recent, oh so confusing arena of life, made intentionally so, another topic for another time. I'm going to only speak of them in their intrinsic natural form and natural state today. The masculine and feminine principle operate with and towards and with each other primarily, as spirit does matter, as will does love, as light does dark, as electricity does magnetism, as form does content, as above does below. The masculine and feminine, which we also call father and mother. Yeah. Now, the father-mother principle, which we as humans get to experience when we become adults, we ourselves, when we leave childhood, we become able to create offspring. Yeah. The father and the mother can find each other, two humans, and when they come together, they can produce a child, the offspring. This is the same principle as above, so below, that the universe operates in by creating life. The whole universe is created the same way. Will and love do the exact same thing to unfold all of manifest existence of which we are a part. And we, so below, are exactly identically made as that which is above. So looking to this is a holy makeup. This is what I mean by holy vision. We ourselves are a part of this incredible construct. So the father-mother principle, masculine, feminine, male, female, we see it in all the kingdoms of nature, in ourselves especially is of particular interest. The quality of the masculine and the feminine, I will explore further. The quality of the masculine having a essentially penetrative quality. Think of light here. By the way, when I use the word will for the primary masculine component, the primary aspect of existence, I myself prefer to use the word light, capital L, in fact all capitals. For light for me is the Father, it is the will, and because I understand that, the word light for me carries the will implicit in it, although for many people the word light may just carry the electromagnetic vibrations that bring heat and physical light onto the planet. But for me, light is a superluminal term as well as a physics term. And light is, for me, interchangeable with the Father. So the light, the Father, is penetrative by nature. Light penetrates. It emanates and penetrates everything. Now, the mother, the feminine, is inherently her polarity principle to the Father's penetration energy is receptivity. She is inherently receptive. Matter and love yield. They yield. In nature, they yield. Effortlessly, naturally. Now, this is another whole exploration in itself about how the masculine and feminine operate most naturally and most perfectly together. And to do a brief exploration around that, the reason we've come off the balance between the natural operation between these two, which we certainly have, okay, is because thousands of years ago, humanity living in tribes was ruled by a principle we would call a matriarchy, which means women, the feminine, were an intrinsic part of the elders and the decision-making process for any given tribe. The feminine and the masculine were equally involved in this. And this was understood to be part of the natural balance because humanity at that time was still in natural balance with itself and emulated the way that the universe was made and was in harmony with it, you see. That harmony, a beautiful state, was reflected in the governance systems of tribalism. Now, due to the necessary evolution of humanity and the evolution particularly of our nervous system, we had to step into a more enhanced aspect of our evolution, which meant that the masculine component was under a particular force of evolution inside humanity. I'll explore that also in many more, in detail, in many more discourses in the future. Suffice to say that this principle of the masculine enhancement by the universe itself, this principle in humanity, not in the universe, but in humanity in particular, in the kingdom of the fourth kingdom of humanity, underwent a certain force, and the masculine responded by should we say, usurping its place, by upping its position and assuming a role not native to it, but the assumption as a result of its own imbalance and lack of understanding of what its true role is. And thus we have the age of the patriarchy, the age of Pisces, the last 2,000 years, in which the patriarchy has made a complete mess of this planet. And the dear, beloved, blessed feminine, the matriarchy, has truly suffered insufferably at the hands of men, gone from equal and beloved and cherished counterpart to possession, the object of dominion, control, force, and ownership. Degradation, basically. It is no wonder in these days, in this age, that the feminine is revolting quietly. It begins with feminism. About 100 years ago, the first, women began to declare that it was time for them to have a vote in England. Okay, just over 100 years ago, in the so-called Western sophisticated world, women did not have the vote. In some parts of the world today, they still do not. These places are still like the Middle Ages. They haven't progressed past the 14 or 1500s. More on that later. However, back to our Western civilization, the feminine is in the process of trying to reestablish her role, and the masculine is reluctantly but necessarily giving way to this. Many other evolutionary processes are also going on behind the scenes here, which I'll explore in another video. But for now, suffice to say that this whole role between masculine, feminine, mother, father, man, and women is based on her receptivity, his penetrative, which also manifests in the two beautiful qualities of the masculine guidance and the feminine nurture. Guidance, nurture. Another masculine and feminine principle endemic to fathers and mothers, to the masculine and feminine. And we come here, say, in regards to our children. Our children, which are the holy offspring, the holy trinity output, the combination of mother and father in manifestation as a combination of each of these, a continuation and an expansion, an acceleration, however minor, of their own life's makeup and achievement and being, is increased somewhat in every child that two people make. Now, father and mother love their children equally, as every father and mother knows. But even though the love is the same, intensity and degree, and the ability to self-sacrifice, protect, and do anything for your child is inherent in our makeup, however beautiful that is, the nature of that love differs somewhat in its actual expression. See, the mother's love, being nurture and pure support, being pure love itself, knows no distinctions. It loves all her children equally. It loves just for love's sake, because the children are the object that the mother herself seeks to support and outpour herself into, so that her love, her powers, her providence may flow into their children, into her children. So she does so without thinking, needing to think, this is just a selfless outpouring, and all mothers generally will understand what I mean if they are watching this. For the children's sake, they experience their mother's love as a constant giving generally, the essence of a mother's love. A father's love, now ultimately fathers and mothers must also learn parts of each other's love in order to balance things, otherwise the children get out of control. For men and women are not meant to be totally separate, they are meant to unify in their principles and exchange both together, even though each principle has its specialty, its specialization. The mother nurturing, the father guidance. What is the guidance principle of the father in a family unit? Well, we see that the love of fathers towards their children is more compared to the mother that just wants to feed their children. If we're talking about food, mothers just want to feed their children. Look at Italy for a classic example. Mama, you feed me too much. No, you're getting too weak. You're getting too skinny. You have to eat more. That's the mother's thing, just eat. They're very happy. Some cultures are really great at that. The father's principle is more about guidance. The father doesn't want his children to eat constantly, even though the mother would be happy to do that. The father goes, no, I want my children to learn to feed themselves. The love that I bear my children is so great that I want them one day, it is my role as a guidance principle, as a protection principle, to guide them and teach them, each one teach one, how to stand on their own feet. The mother doesn't really mind whether they stand on their own feet or not, because she loves her children regardless, and she would be happy to be a mother for all her life long. If the children would remain children, mothers would often, even though they may enjoy a break from it, and I'm sure most mothers do when their children reach 20 plus, a breath of success, a breath of delight and relief, as well as the love never ending. However, at some level, mothers could continue mothering forever, and most certainly do. Their children never cease being that. I was born in the 60s. My mum is very old now, and she still calls me her boy. That will never end, as I'm sure it is with all of us. The father's principle, however, as guidance. I want my child to stand on their own, to look after themselves, so that we are not needed, so that in case something happens to us, my child may survive, may have what it takes to continue by itself. That's the father's job, to nurture independence, sovereignty, self-reliance. Okay, so in these two things, the guidance and nurturing principles, which are both equal expressions of love, have different applications. Sometimes children may feel that the father is mean. Father won't let me do this. He's denied me this. He's done that. Well, this is because the father sees that if the child were to be given everything, it will become a spoiled brat, obviously. So it can't just be offered everything, which is an inherently feminine love. Love just offers all without thinking, without discrimination. And without reason, it just offers itself. The father goes, well, there has to be limits to this, because ultimately, otherwise the love will get out of control. And just like we see sometimes with old ladies, who have a dog, and the little pouch poodles, with their winter coats on. The old ladies go walking sometimes with their dogs, not all old ladies, but some for sure. And it's quite funny to see how you see this dog that was probably once meant to be like 2 or 3 kilos has managed to achieve around 5 or 6 kilos. It pretty much doubled its weight. It's like a tub with 4 legs sticking out of it, especially the Dachshunds. Or those other kinds of small dogs like that. Some of them are just so ridiculously out of proportion, because their mother's love, which has transferred itself from their children, whether they had them or not, to this now animal which they mother, ceaselessly pours out love in the form of food to the animal, which of course just keeps on eating, because it's like, right, this is awesome. And because it doesn't know its limits, we see like really fat chub tubs going around, which of course is a disadvantage for the life form itself. So the father's role is to set boundaries to this love, necessary boundaries, because life is served by having not too much of one and not too much of the other. So a necessary balance between the two, which is why the father and mother must work together, why the feminine and masculine are designed to work together and dream and love to do so and find fulfillment in doing so. So this brings us to another masculine component of protection, the mothers of support. The masculine inherently protects, the mothers inherently support. One of the qualities, again, in humanity in which this particular manifestation takes place is the mind and the heart, something which I have not spoken of yet, which I should have done earlier, but ultimately finds its place now while we speak of qualities pertinent to humanity itself. The mind and the heart are the divine's manifestations of will and love, of the divine highest attributes in the universe inside individual humanity. Inside humanity as a whole, we have the masculine and feminine as extensions of will and love. Within each individual human, this same polarity continues as the mind and the heart. Yes? Now, the mind and the heart, the quality of the mind is understanding. When the mind fulfills its purpose and does its work, the mind uses the machinery of mind to decipher the world and understand the world. Understanding brings clarity. The mind's powers are understanding and clarity. In its highest form, as I said earlier, awe and wonder, but in the mundane form, its understanding and clarity are the powers of the human mind, in men and women. In the feminine, who are again specialized in the heart, as men are specialized in their mind, even though men and women have both mind and heart. The heart's primary state, as the mind's understanding, is love. And love, when expressed, when the fruit of love, you might say, in the human heart, is compassion. Compassion is a softening towards all things, and acceptance of all things. The masculine may put up boundaries and, say, this is enough, or no, go no further, or no, you can't do this, whereas, or this cannot be tolerated and there must be consequences. The feminine is more merciful. She has compassion. In her innermost nature, the masculine and the feminine learn together of each other, from each other's natural specialization. Men learn of women the nature of love. Women learn of men the essence of understanding, even though both men and women carry understanding and love. But each sex specializes in a particular form of that. And in our relations together, these divine relations, which are mirrors of the will and love of the universe unfolding itself, we learn from each other beautifully. We learn through each other, by each other, and from each other. And the love of one for the other is the glue, is the foundation for this learning. And all relationships in the world that we have between men and women, which begin and end, some begin and last the whole lifetime, but usually they begin and end. At the very latest, all relationships between men and women begin and end, even if you only have one for your whole life as a partner, for ultimately you are born and you will die. And so ultimately the relationship once created will end when you leave this place as an individual soul. So, the feminine nature, her beauty. I have not spoken enough of truth and beauty. This truth and beauty, which again, reflections of will and love, of masculine and feminine. Truth and beauty are, for me, the greatest hallmarks of existence in this third dimension. They are the greatest and most beautiful aspire towards manifestations, for me personally, in this world. The feminine represents beauty. The masculine represents truth in essence. The feminine being form in its nature is beautiful. Atoms are beautiful. Mountains are beautiful. Plants are beautiful. All the kingdoms are beautiful. Women are beautiful. Men consider women beautiful because they are women, because they are the feminine, and they are love. They are all the same principle made manifest in this myriad of forms, all the same form. And a woman's beauty, men adore the form of women. Men generally adore women's bodies. This is not misogynistic. This is not meant to be a degradation of the other qualities of women. It's just a fact that men adore women's bodies, because the masculine, which is content, yearns for form. It adores form. And the feminine is form. She is the materialized form of this divine principle in the materialized universe. That's why you have most strip clubs have women in them, not men. Okay? Even though women will enjoy men's bodies too, of course. Naturally, we enjoy each other. But the predominant reason why men adore women's bodies is because women represent form, and the beauty principle is manifest through form. Also through the heart, of course. But in the physical body, it manifests through form. And so men adore the physical form of women. Because of that, and because of the heart principle that women embody, principally specialized in their physical form and their soul, their human heart and their minds, are all aligned to this feminine nature. This feminine nature, being beauty itself, is something that the masculine has a response to. And this response that we experience as individuals, is a way to understand how the universe itself responds to itself, how will responds to love, how spirit responds to matter, how plus responds to minus, how electricity responds to magnetism, remember? How fire responds to water. The masculine is inspired. Some force enters the masculine. Inspiration is a light, a very high frequency of light that enters into men and women, but I say man as in mankind. Inspiration enters into mankind, into men and women. Men in particular thrive on this. Not that women do not thrive on it, but men have learned to understand the principle of inspiration because of the existence of women. Women may be inspired equally so by other forms of beauty in nature, which they often are, by other ways in which the feminine herself manifests in creation. But because the masculine has a polarity which is already yearning himself towards the feminine, that force of her beauty has a particular power that no woman can actually understand unless she is a man. She may experience inspiration, she may experience the beauty of the world, of course, for beauty is visible and felt in the universe, and in nature especially, and in herself especially. But the masculine has a yearning, and that yearning magnifies, that attraction, that yearning to be close to her, with her, in her, as her. That yearning magnifies her beauty to the point where he experiences a light pouring into himself. We know not from where this light comes. But that inpouring of light, the masculine calls inspiration. Now, inspiration is common to both sexes, and so it is common to all of us. And yet, inspiration is the masculine response to the existence of beauty. It is the response of truth to beauty. And I say truth again because truth is the counterpart to beauty. And the masculine is inspired in the presence of beauty to make truth, to create truth, to outpour truth. Okay? Now, just in brief, beauty and truth, again, through these two opposite principles, seem to be, and again, to highlight the fact that these two are counterparts. They may appear as opposites, like plus and minus do, like male and female do, like spirit and matter appear opposite to each other. They may appear opposites, but they are in fact counterparts. Like the two strands of a DNA spiral, that before they become spiral, one feminine, one masculine, one love, one will, when these two approximate each other and they come into a certain degree of contact with each other, the field around the feminine and the responsiveness of the masculine to that field, the inspiration, the yearning for it, begins to pull them together into a kind of dance. That dance is the vortex. The vortex permeates all creation. Our DNA is made up of that very force, the physical core of our makeup, of our existence, which holds the codes for our physical bodies and our higher dimensional bodies as they may express themselves through this physical body. Another great exploration we will go into in another series later on, which is called the kingdoms, the 7 kingdoms. For now, we start with the 4 kingdoms, which we are the 4th of. But this is the principle by which these forces manifest through truth and beauty, through inspiration and the muse. The feminine beauty is the muse. She represents the muse energy, and everything feminine is a muse for all consciousness. And everything which is masculine produces truth in response. My own work, my own revelations, my own insight are solely the product of the existence of the feminine, of the beauty principle in this world that I have witnessed, glimpsed, felt an indefinable and immortal yearning for and love of her nature. And just to describe again briefly how the human race has, since 2,000 years, lost the plot of the true balance between these two, which is the purpose today, to explore the true makeup and the true forces that run the universe, as well as the means by which humanity has lost that balance, is that the feminine yields to the masculine by nature, because the masculine adores the feminine. His whole being is in truth, in protection, in guidance, in service to her, not enslavement, not control, not dominance, none of these things. The masculine in its essence adores the feminine, just as the feminine in her essence loves the masculine. That adoration quality, when present in the masculine, which is natural in the presence of what he perceives to be beauty, true beauty, any woman manifesting any form of true beauty in her soul, in her body, in her mind, in any of her vehicles, will produce the state of adoration in the masculine. This is the glue that binds the two together and creates the vehicle of evolution between the two. The masculine inspiration outpouring is a result of this. His adoration is the guarantee of his love. And the feminine, in the receiving, sensing, feeling his adoration, yields. For she has nothing to fear. She is not to be dominated, ruled, controlled, dictated to, enslaved, owned, bought, or sold. She knows inherently that she can trust this force, this adoration, for he reveres her. Reverence is a masculine quality. Reverence. A true divine masculine quality. And the divine masculine, which divine feminine, divine masculine on this planet now entering into a new kingdom of being, new forces unfolding across the planet. It's time for humanity to step up out of the current fourth kingdom into a new kingdom of being, which is unfolding by the universe's decree. And this is the consequence of this. The masculine is learning to adore once more and to control itself. For control is divine when the masculine exercises this internally. And it is evil, let's call it satanic, when it is used externally. Understand? Control is divine when used internally, self-control, and it is demonic, for the sake of using a contextual word from divine, the oppositional, when used externally. Control exercised outside is never divine, and it always has unfortunate consequences connected to it. So the masculine is learning to control itself, and as a result learns to adore. As it comes to adore, the feminine can relax and can yield and can offer her greatest gift, which is her surrender. This is the counterpart to reverence. He reveres, she surrenders. These two principles arise within humanity in equal measure due to the presence of the other. This is a most beautiful meditation and a most beautiful concept around this. With that, I would like to come to an end of the exploration of these two principles. By now, it should be clear that the two things that the universe began as are inseparable from every living moment in every aspect of our individual and collective lives here on the planet. Yes? Remembering this is the gift of my mountaintop here today, and you are with me, sitting here with me today, and sharing my vision, sharing my perspective. May you return to your valley remembering this. If you forget, come back and and renew this perception, this high perception. Renew it and take it with you again into the valley, and do it as many times as you need. And we do this with every part of our life spiritually. We find a mountaintop of some kind and we bring it into life, and it's dispersed and forgotten in the valley, and the hubbub and noise, the silence and the majesty of the mountaintop, the voice of silence which speaks multi-dimensions to our being, is lost. This whisper is lost in the noise of the valley of life. And so we return to the mountaintop periodically to remember the whisper, to listen to it again, and with it we return to life. And we do so over and over and over again until we can hear it inside us, in the valley, in the midst of the hubbub, in the midst of the craziness of life. This state, this outcome, is meditation itself. And it is the goal of meditation itself. Yes? No. So the guidance here between all these principles are showing us how to operate successfully and naturally in accordance with the laws that made the universe and made everything. How can we not want to operate outside of that? How can we not want to operate inside of it? How can we operate outside and be successful and be happy and be fulfilled and be healthy and manifest our rightful inheritance as human beings? The inheritance waits for us. It waits for us with bated breath. And it does so by waiting for us to enter into the right relationship inside ourselves. For remember, these two principles within our individual selves are the mind and the heart, and these two principles have a relationship to one another, which I will explore in detail in another talk soon called The Kingdom. This is how to enter into this perfect relationship, this right relationship with each other as men and women, with ourselves to the world existence, and with ourselves to God. Let's call it by its name, to the divine, to the source of all existence that has given its spark and its breath to all existence. And we carry a mighty piece of it in our hearts and minds. We human beings, we special creatures, So, let us take this knowledge today and bring it into our lives to further our own evolution. We shall return to this topic and many other topics. What I speak of today will echo in every other talk that I give, and I'll often reference it because it is endemic, and as you can see, it is foundational to understanding, to the holy vision, to the holy seeing of the world. It is foundational, and it is the foundation itself upon which the pillars of the roofless temple are built. That is our inheritance, that we are here to build individually and collectively in this age that is dawning. Thank you for your attention today. Thank you for your time. I am Sevn Sharman. This is Channel 7. This has been over an hour of power, and yet I hope it has also been timeless. For the truths we touch upon themselves are eternal, are beyond time, and therefore when we touch upon them and surround ourselves with them, like all true creative states, the timeless state intervenes and arises, and time seems not to pass. If you look at your clock now, it'll be like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? But ultimately, if you are with me and with this journey in this place, and your mind with mine and your perspective with mine, time will have stopped for a moment. This is the creative place that we will endeavor to return to over and over again. And from this place, watch from a high perspective how everything has been made, and we ourselves are a divine part of it. This will inspire us to do what we are here to do. This is the inspiration age dawning, and this is my work. Thank you so much. Blessings and love.